A mother's judgment when her son's lover's past is revealed. The scent of ginger and lemongrass drifted from the kitchen, where T. Dipe stood by the stove, sleeves rolled, stirring soup with gentle care. She never thought she'd find herself here inside the home of CEO James, standing beside his mother, trying to earn her approval not with words, but with warmth. James had insisted she come, said his mother was kind, and for the most part, she was. The elderly woman, graceful and composed, had greeted T. Dipe with polite curiosity and even complimented her cooking. There had been laughter, soft smiles, and a quiet sense of belonging until dinner. It was during the meal, just as T. Dipe passed the fish dish across the table, that the warmth vanished. So is it true what I heard? James's mother asked suddenly, her voice even but razor sharp, that you were once married? The chopsticks in T. Dipe's hand froze mid-air, across the table. James looked up, startled, but he said nothing, not yet. Yes, T. Dipe said softly, eyes lowered, but that chapter of my life is over. A long silence followed. James reached out, as if to speak, but his mother raised her hand, slightly cutting him off. Without a word, her eyes locked onto T. Dipe's, no longer warm, but clouded with suspicion. Some chapters, she said coldly, have consequences that echo. T. Dipe could feel herself shrinking, her chest tightening. She had never tried to hide her past, only hoped it wouldn't define her. But here, in the grand dining room of the man she loved, surrounded by silence and judgment, it suddenly felt like a stain. James did not defend her. He didn't hold her hand, didn't say her past didn't matter. His silence screamed louder than words. After the meal, T. Dipe stood, bowed politely, and said she had to return to her farm. His mother merely nodded. James followed her to the gate, but the damage was done. She smiled at him weakly, said thank you for today, and walked away carrying the weight of disappointment on her shoulders. And James, he watched her go, unsure whether he'd just lost the one woman who ever truly saw him. The sky was dark by the time T. Dipe reached her small farmhouse. The wind rustled through the banana trees, whispering secrets the stars dared not hear. She slipped off her shoes, sat on the wooden porch, and stared into the quiet night. Inside, the phone buzzed. Once, then. Again James. She didn't pick up. Her heart was still tangled in the silence he offered when she needed his voice the most. Meanwhile, back at the villa, James stood by the window in his room, staring at the driveway where her shadow had disappeared. His hands were clenched at his sides. He could still hear his mother's words echoing in the dining room. She's not suitable for you, James. She carries baggage, scandals, a divorce. He had wanted to speak up, but something held him back, perhaps pride, perhaps fear of confrontation. But now, in her absence, all he felt was regret. James stormed down the hall and found his mother still sitting in the lounge, sipping tea as if nothing had happened. You humiliated her, he said. His mother didn't look up. I asked a question. You passed judgment. She placed the cup on the table slowly, finally meeting his gaze. I've built a reputation, a life. You're a public figure, James. You cannot marry someone with such a past. Think about the shareholders, the media. I'm not marrying the media, James said coldly. I'm in love with her. That was the first time he had said it out loud to anyone but himself. The next morning, the sun rose over T. Dipe's fields, painting gold across the rows of eggplants and bitter melons. She tried to focus on her work, her hands deep in soil, but her mind was elsewhere. A sudden knock at the gate made her heart skip. It was James. Disheveled, eyes tired, but gaze unwavering. I should have said something, he began. I should have protected you. I didn't. And I'm sorry. T. Dipe looked away. It's not just about words, James. I saw her eyes. I saw yours. He stepped closer. Then look into them now. I don't care about your past. I only care about our future. If you'll still have me. T-Dipe said nothing. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. The grand villa was quiet again. Sunlight slanting through the tall windows as James, his mother, stood by the staircase, watching her son walk in with T-Dipe at his side. T-Dipe greeted her politely, eyes lowered, voice steady. James's mother nodded in return, just a nod, nothing more. She didn't offer warmth, but she didn't offer coldness either. It was the kind of greeting that balanced on the edge of acceptance. "I've made tea," she said, motioning toward the sitting room. They sat. Silence wrapped around them, broken only by the gentle clink of porcelain. James tried to fill the air with light conversation, but his mother remained reserved. Her eyes often lingered on T-Dipe, not unkind, but assessing, as if searching for flaws hidden beneath the polite smile. When James stepped away to take a call, the silence between the two women deepened. Then, softly, his mother spoke. "You have a calm strength," she said, "that can be rare." T-Dipe met her gaze, steady but respectful. "Thank you." Another pause. "I won't lie to you," the older woman continued, fingers tracing the edge of her teacup. "I still have doubts, not about your character, perhaps, but about your past, about the weight you and James might carry together." T-Dipe didn't flinch. "The past is behind me, but I won't deny it. I only asked for a chance to build something real with him." James's mother gave a faint, unreadable smile. "A chance. That's all life gives any of us." She said no more, but when James returned, she stood and placed a hand gently on his shoulder. It was a small gesture, but to him, it meant everything. She hadn't fully accepted T-Dipe, not yet, but she had allowed the door to open, just enough for love to walk through. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a shadow over the city. T-Dipe sat alone in her apartment, the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her. The recent events, the tension in the air between her and James's family, the constant uncertainty about their future, it all seemed overwhelming. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was lurking, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Unbeknownst to her, in a dimly lit corner of the city, Tung was brooding. His feelings for T-Dipe had never been just admiration. It had always been something deeper, something unspoken, and now it had become a quiet rage, a rage fueled by the fact that she had chosen James over him. Tung had watched from the sidelines as James and T-Dipe grew closer, their bonds strengthening while his own dreams were quietly shattered. He had always believed that T-Dipe deserved more than the man who, in his eyes, was the cause of her suffering, the powerful CEO whose family had put her in danger. Now, Tung couldn't stand the thought of her continuing to walk this dangerous path, entangled with James, unaware of the real threats around her. The feeling of helplessness gnawed at him until it turned into something far darker: jealousy, betrayal, and finally resentment. "I can't let this happen," he muttered to himself as he sat in his car, staring out into the night. His phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen. "The plan is set. You know what to do." Tung's fingers hovered over the keys. He had been toying with the idea for days, mulling over the consequences. But now, the decision was made. His love for T-Dipe was no longer about protecting her, it was about taking her away from James, about showing her what could have been, what should have been. He couldn't allow her to continue in the path where she might get hurt because of James's family. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he'd hoped to never call again. A few minutes later, he met with two strangers, men whose eyes were cold and empty. They didn't care about T-Dipe, nor her connection to James. They only cared about the money he was offering. "I need you to make sure James gets a warning," Tung said, his voice low. "Nothing fatal, just enough to scare him, enough to make him back off from her. And if he doesn't, escalate it." The two men nodded, understanding his intentions. They didn't need further instructions. Meanwhile, James was completely unaware of the storm brewing in the shadows. He and T-Dipe had been spending more time together, growing closer with each passing day. But in the background, the web of betrayal spun tighter. As the days passed, T-Dipe sensed that something was off. Her usual calm was replaced with an uneasy feeling that James couldn't quite understand. One evening, as they walked home together, the sense of danger was almost tangible, like a storm just beyond the horizon. That night, as James was preparing for a late meeting at his office, the trap was set into motion. Two masked men appeared, blocking his path on a quiet street. They were fast and efficient, and before James could react, one of them grabbed him from behind, knocking him unconscious with a blow to the head. T-Dipe, just moments behind, arrived at the scene to see her worst fear come true. James was being dragged away by two strangers. In that instant, everything shifted. The reality of the danger James had been facing and the treachery of Tung became brutally clear. She tried to scream, but her voice was swallowed by the night. The two men turned, their eyes empty of empathy, before they vanished into the shadows. The sound of James's body hitting the ground echoed in T-Dipe's mind like a thunderclap. Her heart pounded in her chest, her feet frozen to the pavement as the two strangers dragged him away. Into the darkness, she couldn't scream, she didn't have time. Instinct kicked in. T-Dipe ran. Her breath was shallow, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She didn't know who these men were or what they wanted, but she knew one thing. She had to find James. Nothing else mattered. She followed the sound of a vehicle engine starting. Down the alley, a black van peeled away, its tires screeching as it disappeared into the night. She forced herself to memorize part of the license plate. Her hands shook as she dialed the one person she could trust, Tung, James's most loyal assistant. "James has been taken," she whispered into the phone, her voice trembling. "Two men, a black van. I think it was planned." Tung didn't waste a second. "Where are you?" "Stay where it's safe. I'm calling security and the police. We'll trace it." But T-Dipe couldn't stay still. She had seen something else. One of the attackers had a tattoo on his wrist, a symbol she faintly recognized from a gang that had once threatened a market near her hometown. Her memories of helping villagers resist extortion now returned with new clarity. With a shaking but determined heart, she pulled out her old phone, scrolling through her list of contacts until she reached someone she hadn't spoken to in years. And how? A former street musician turned local informant. He answered immediately. "You remember that tattoo, the three-spike flame?" she asked. A pause. "Yeah, that's a crew from the docks. Dangerous guys. If they've got James, you don't have much time." T-Dipe's voice was firm. "I'm coming. Text me the place. I need to see for myself." At the same time, somewhere in an abandoned warehouse near the industrial edge of the city, James slowly regained consciousness, his vision blurred, head aching. He was tied to a chair, blood dripping from a gash on his temple. And then, through the pounding in his ears, he heard a voice. "You should have stayed away from her." James looked up slowly. Tung, his former ally, his silent rival,